Hello, my name is Dale Hawthorne. Welcome to my channel. This message is about why narcissistic abusers find it easy to recruit their flying monkeys in our churches. Yeah, a lot of people um, when a narcissistic abuser comes into a church, they find it pretty easy to cooperate with him or her, and we can call it the curse of triangulation. Yeah, triangulation in our churches happens a lot. And the reason is, we do find that um, little phrase repeating itself. Don't tell him or her that I told you this, but. So this happens as it's a phrase. Other phrases like it. So we do find people passing on, triangulating, I guess, a person, where you got the target, the person who's being recruited into this con game, the flying monkey, and the person who's sponsoring it. So the reason is, I think that we're very much accustomed to being passive in the face of slander and gaslighting. When people do that, I think over my lifetime I've seen a lot of people in our churches take on the persona, the appearance of the non-judgmental counselor far too often when they're dealing with people. We try to be amateur therapists too much, and we, because of this, have insufficient caution against wolves in sheep's clothing. And I'd like to refer you to my previous video on the social behavior of the narcissistic abuser, as a way which I talk about how these people behave in groups in public when they're dealing with the target. And again, it comes back, that little phrase, don't tell him or her that I told you this, but. But the other phrases like it, they're often preludes for what those in the recovery movement call triangulation, telling stories about someone else who's not there that they would not say to that person's face. It's a cowardly form of indirect communication, and it's often very false. Scripture uses terms, depending on the translation, describe it like tale-bearing. King James uses that. You can look it up in a concordance. Tale-bearing, gossip. That's more modern translations use that word. And some other terms that we have for this nowadays are spreading rumors, telling stories, lies, backstabbing, so on. Unfortunately, a lot of people in our churches are so nice that they say nothing when they hear this phrase, and they passively let the other person simply go on with whatever it was that that person's going to say, and they absorb a lie, participate in this triangulation, and people's lives and reputations are badly affected. And so often we're passive in these situations. We're too nice. We have a lack of discernment of evil behavior, and we have reluctance to avoid confronting evil very often when we see it. Sometimes when we see it happening right in front of us, and very often it comes also from a desire to, we want people to see us as open-minded, up-to-date, hip, nice guy, Christian, and that we don't want to come across as judgmental because we hear this from the world outside of Christ, and it can be exploited by others who understand that we're trying to be nice and we're trying to play the amateur therapist. So when I was a pastor for only probably not much more than a year or two, I began to develop a habit. If I heard this coming from someone, this type of phrase, I would say, if they don't tell him or her I told you this, but, or I know we're not supposed to judge, but I would say at that point, politely, gently, as firmly as I could when they came to the but, please don't go any further. That's a good way to start it, to nip it in the bud right there. Because what you're going to find is probably something that person needs to deal with in their own heart, needs to deal with perhaps with that other person to their face. But that would be a good way to start out. Another way to address this would be to say something like, let's back up. Why don't you want the other person to know about this? Or something like, this sounds like something that other person really needs to hear from someone. And if you're the one who knows that, do you realize you're not doing yourself or that person any good, any favor by not telling him or her the truth in love? So I only know of one person that was really offended by this approach, and she was trying to go on to make me the target of her gossip afterwards, after I did that. And that was a risk I was willing to take. You see, in my own life, I had come across a certain phrase, part of the Psalms, Psalm 105, or 101, verse 5. Whoever slanders his neighbor secretly, I will destroy. Whoever has an haughty look and an arrogant heart, I will not endure. So it's not put in the commitment that David puts across in this to steadfast love and justice. He's going to take care of not being a part of slandering someone secretly. And this is not only David, though. I can't see Jesus sitting by passively in the face of slander. And you do have to have that commitment to consider what it means to walk in integrity, to ponder the way that is blameless. What David said here in verse 2, I will ponder the way that was blameless, or when will you come to me? I will walk with integrity of heart within my house. So there's a number of things that Scripture also says that about slander, hatred, and spreading things like that. Proverbs chapter 10, verses 18 through 19 says, whoever conceals his hatred has lying lips, and whoever spreads slander is a fool. Where words are many, sin is not absent. That person who's doing a lot of talking is a fool, concealing hatred and concealing sin in their lives. And Proverbs 16:28 says, a perverse man stirs up dissension, and a gossip separates close friends. Yeah, a lot of people have their relationships with others destroyed who they may have been actually fairly close to by gossip. People backstabbing, spreading slander. And what's the scriptures say about the person who listens to slander? Proverbs 17:4, a wicked man listens to evil lips. A liar pays attention to a malicious tongue. And so what does Scripture say? Not endure them. Proverbs 20:19 says, a gossip betrays a confidence, so avoid a man who talks too much. Yeah, that person who you tell a secret to won't keep the secret, won't keep the confidence. This isn't a secret about someone else, but a personal secret. Maybe dealing with some hidden sin, which maybe at some point they will come out with a statement of victory. Maybe that'll come out in eternity. But it isn't your job, anyone's job, to tell the whole world about that. If someone's working on it in a godly way with prayer and scripture, seeking to overcome that sin and so on. So there are also some very reasonable questions that can bring this sort of backstabbing to a stop. And these aren't original with me. I grabbed these from the book Neil Anderson and Charles Mylander's book, Setting Your Church Free, a Biblical Plan to Help Your Church. 5 questions. First, what is your reason for telling me this or for telling anyone this? Why are you saying this? Number 2, where did you get your information? So you may find that the person you're talking to is a flying monkey, and you might find the source. Have you gone directly to the source? Have you gone to the person who's the target of concern and so on? Number 4, have you personally checked out all the facts? That's a good way to find out whether it's a pound of lies and an ounce of truth. And someone will keep on pointing that kernel of truth, but they don't take responsibility for the extreme amount of lies and exaggerations that surround it. Finally, will you allow yourself to be quoted on this? Will you allow yourself to be quoted as the one who is the source of this if I go back to that person? A lot of times you'll find people backtracking right there. So it's a good idea to speak to the target, maybe perhaps when where these things happen, remember, for our churches, we need to deal with this in a godly way. People may be leaving our churches because someone has done this to them. And we need to remember, information about other people has an extremely short shelf life, and it is easily corruptible. It is easily spoils when people add in their own ideas, their own misunderstandings, and their own lies, unfortunately. So it may be found to have gone long past the expiration date of having any reasonable validity. It may have been true perhaps in the past, but maybe that person has actually overcome that sin. Or maybe they're still working on it, or maybe it was never true in the first place. But whatever it may be, these are some things I have put down for why we see triangulation happening and what to do about it, how we deal with it. I think if we deal with it in a godly way, we'll find a lot more loving fellowship within our churches, and people will find themselves that they can be safe in a church if they're working to overcome something, whatever it may be. If they're working to overcome something before God, we need to be on the side of God, helping them, guiding them, praying for them, rather than be those who stand back and gloat and tell stories. So that's all I have to say about this. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Hope this helps.